This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 7th year. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey everybody, it's Alex, it's the Ramble, and we're here until midnight tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, he's Larry, and he's Bubbles, and he's brown as ever. Brown as ever.
Not to be confused with a band called Bubbles Brown, or Brown Bubbles.
Oh, Brown Bubbles? That would be Brown, comma, Bubbles.
Yeah.
Or Bubbles, yeah. Well,
they're in Chicago, I think. But.
Yeah. We've gone into it before and how that name came to be. Paula Poundstone.
Yeah.
She thought you were about as exciting as you are right now, and so she called you Bubbles.
Oh, I was trying to get her to go to a hot tub, and that's why.
Oh, I see. And there are bubbles in the hot tub.
Yes, of course.
Why were you trying to get her to go to a hot tub? Were you trying to...
Well, it was her and another woman at the Holy City Zoo. At the time, it seemed like a good idea.
You figured maybe you'd get a little if you went to the hot tub?
Yes, because the week before, I'd actually gone to the hot tub with two women that weren't comics, and then I got in there. I walked in with two women, and people thought I was a god, and nothing happened. I remember it seemed like such a great idea going in. Then when we actually started going in, I think I got terrified.
Yeah, you got terrified?
Yes.
Oh,
what am I going to do with two women?
Well, you disappoint both of them, I suppose.
Yeah. Like the dog that chases a car. If he ever catches it, what's he going to do? You know?
Have you ever done a twosome?
No, I always wanted to, but that was very elusive.
I did a twosome. Oh, once I did it. I did a couple of twosomes.
I mean a threesome.
A threesome. Yeah. Sometimes I do a twosome. It's me and me. But I did a threesome. I've done a couple of threesomes in my life, but the threesome that was the most memorable was two sisters.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. Strange. I mean, they weren't like kissing each other or doing anything like that, but they were both having sex with me. But I never liked threesomes.
Someone that told me that had been involved in them said that it actually sounds better than it is because you're trying to give attention to both of them, and it's kind of awkward.
Well, the worst part is if one of them is your current girlfriend, okay, and now you have this third person in bed with all of you, and you want to try and pay as much attention to her as you do to the other person,
yeah.
You're spending too much time being diplomatic, okay? So it really is not a good thing. Being diplomatic when you're having sex is not fun because you're having to you can't get into the spirit of the moment. You're parceling yourself out. I mean, maybe better to be a threesome with another guy, then at least you can all grab for the woman, you know. But you never had the threesome you wanted to have.
No, that's on the bucket list.
Well, that was the Mount Everest of sex, you know. Hey, what happened? I had a threesome last night. Oh,
yeah, that'd
what
be
was
wild.
it like? Oh, that's got to be wild. No, I couldn't get it up. You know, I
mean, you disappointed two women.
Well, in those situations, you know, like my personally, I never had a problem with my body not reacting to sex, but you know, who knows? You know, but that's you know, it's. What was I going to say? Oh well. See, I forgot what I was going to say here. But you know, I just think, God, I've completely my mind's blown here. See,
well, you're tired.
That's from being tired. Okay, so anyway, the threesome is not a wonderful idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I don't make it, it's no big deal then.
Yeah, my equipment here is kind of screwing up on me a little bit, so I hope this is all recording okay. I've got a problem with the... oh boy, what is this? Okay, now are we through? Okay, we're through. All right. I think we're still... Are we still recording? Yeah, we're still recording. I was having some problem here with the equipment. That's what I was talking about. Problems with the equipment.
Problem with the equipment, yeah.
Problems with the equipment. Yeah, sometimes if you got into a situation like that, all of a sudden, this one thing, which has always been your divining rod, okay, it stops working. And you go, why? And the answer is you're probably too scared or frightened of the situation, or the anticipation is so high. There was this woman I knew who was hot, really hot. She was a friend, maybe my oldest friend in the world, because when I was a kid, she was a younger kid than me and was the daughter of somebody my mother worked for. So I got to know her as just a friend, all right? And she grew up into this. I mean, if you saw her, your jaw would drop, okay? And I always kept thinking about having sex with her, but when I finally met up with her again in New York, she was married. So that was impossible, but I could be friends with she and her husband. All of a sudden, one day, they break up, and I've just broken up with my wife. And I go, I've always wanted to do this, okay? And we got into the situation, and I couldn't get it up. I just couldn't. And I made the excuse most guys do. That's never happened to me before. And she's kind of looking at me like, sure, it's never happened to you before. Probably happens every time. But she gave me the answer. Oh, it's okay. I said, okay, let's do another play date on this thing. And we did it, and I was fine, and I, performed.
You redeemed yourself.
Yeah, but I was so amped up. For years, I had wanted to have sex with this woman. For years. And finally, the day came, and you just, that's it. And you're looking down at it going, hey, I've been a friend to you. Why are you doing this to me now?
Why are you betraying me?
Many times I haven't wanted to jerk off, but I did it because I knew it would make you feel good. I just never could figure that one out.
Well, a beautiful woman could be intimidating.
Very much so, especially someone you've lusted after for, many, 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 many years. I mean, I'd known her since I was a kid, since I was like 8 years old, 9 years old, something like that. No, 15, something like that. But anyway, if somebody said to me, who's the person you've known the longest, I would have to say this woman. Okay. So anyway, have you ever had that happen to you, Larry? See, I assume you have sex. Okay, I'm assuming you have sex.
Not for a while, but back in the day,
you were doing it a lot. You were doing it a lot.
I did okay. Yeah, that was partly because of being on radio. That helped more than stand up.
Oh, that helped. That helped for me too. I don't know how I would get laid today if I wasn't on the radio, but I don't care anymore because I'm almost 82 years old, and that equipment doesn't work very well now. Because I had all that prostate stuff with the cancer and so on. By the time they got through puncturing my prostate with 100 radioactive seeds, it pretty much doesn't function like it used to. But it was amazing, just amazing.
Yeah. Well, didn't you find during radio, your voice is hitting hundreds of thousands of people, and some women actually fall in love with a voice?
Yes, I think so. But I've never had any woman who seemed to have fallen in love with my voice. I'd like to think they fell in love with me, or if not me, a certain appendage. Otherwise,
You never had to play Misty for me,
No,
stalker.
I never
did
had
you?
anybody say to me, boy, I love your voice. Oh, I love listening to your voice on radio. I've never had that.
Really?
And I
I
don't
got
know.
that a few times.
Huh?
I got that a few times. I don't even like my voice.
Well, I would think that women would have been attracted to you because there's a motherly instinct in women, and you are the person who just screams out for motherly love. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Most of the women I met through comedy were more depressed than me. Seriously, and it was someone told me, "Oh, they were attracted to your act because you were like them," but they were so depressed that it was depressing for me to be around them. It was just horrible.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like someone that's kind of when you like the opposite. So someone that's kind of positive and upbeat would be much preferable to someone that's suicidal.
But what kind of women were then on the whole? What kind of women were attracted to you because of your persona?
They were depressed. They're very depressed. So,
oh, really?
I don't know why they would be attracted. They weren't. They should have been attracted to the opposite, but they weren't. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say there was any type of woman that was attracted to me. They just happened. And if anybody was like, hey, Alex, tell me all about the radio show, and they're like really into the groupie kind of thing, I would have nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody who didn't want me because they found me attractive on a visceral level. Does that make sense?
Yes, but women are attracted to success, which is there's a theory that everything men do to try to become successful is because of sex, trying to impress women.
Yeah. Okay.
And you were very successful, so naturally you got a lot of women.
I don't know that. God, it's funny you mention that. Yes, if I look back on it, I will have to say yes, I was successful. But at the time, I didn't think I was successful. I never had that feeling. When I look back now and I see what I'm making now as opposed to what I was making then, yes, I was successful. But I never thought...
No, you were a household name.
But I never thought of that. I never... and I certainly was aware of it. I mean, I would go into a restaurant and... because I'd been on TV and stuff, people knew what I looked like. They would stare at me, and I would notice that. But I didn't. It didn't become a feeling in my mind that I was famous. You know what I'm saying? It's very strange. I knew that I was, but I didn't know that I was. Am I making any kind of sense?
Yeah,
here?
yeah. But did you enjoy the recognition?
Well, you enjoy it, yes, at the time, I suppose. What you don't enjoy is when you no longer are getting the recognition. When all of a sudden nobody knows who the hell you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why people in show business rarely quit.
It is addiction. It is an addiction. I mean, some people quit because they never get successful at it. They suddenly realize one day, well, I better go into real estate. I mean, how many comedians do you know who have failed didn't suddenly go into some other business? They quit radio and they went and did whatever they did.
Well, you know who went. It's funny you bring that up, real estate. You know who went into real estate? I just saw on Facebook is Robert Morton.
Bob Morton? You mean
yeah.
Morty?
Yeah.
Letterman's producer.
He had a picture on Facebook of him on stage with Letterman. He said, "I've gone into a new business," and he's totally into real estate.
Wow.
Sells real.
Do you know? You know where I first met Morty?
He told me something there's something to do about cable.
He was coming door to door selling cable service, and
wow.
I didn't realize it was Bob Morton. He told me the story years later. He says, "You know where we first met up?" And he said, I want to thank you because you made me a lot of money. And I said, how was that? He said, in fact, it was the most money I ever made before I worked for Letterman. He said, I was selling the cable door to door, and we were using Midnight Blue, the show you produced, to kind of sell it. And
really?
he was going door to door with, are you ready, Stu Smiley. You know the name Stu Smiley?
I know Stu Smiley, yeah.
Yeah, Stu Smiley also was somebody who worked in the comedy business and was, I think, a head of comedy at Showtime.
He did, yeah.
Yeah. So these two very famous business people who were big guys in the producing business and in the cable business and so on were the first. I was one of the doors they knocked on.
Wow.
Yeah, they said Midnight Blue and Chinese programming on cable was what made them the most money.
Well, Morty was always cool with me.
Yeah, Morty's a great guy. Everybody loves Morty.
I did his first show as producer of Letterman.
Yeah,
he got bumped up from segment producer to producer.
He produced it while he was at NBC, and then he went over to CBS with Letterman. And then at some point, and I'd have to ask Shecky why this happened, all of a sudden Morty was no longer there.
They had a falling out, I think. I don't know what it was over.
Yeah, but he had I guess he was maybe 15 years, something like that, with Letterman, maybe more.
Oh, yeah, sure. Easily, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea what happened there. In fact, next time I talk to Shecky,
Shecky.
I'm curious. I have to know.
Shecky knows where all the bodies are buried.
Oh, yeah. He
should write a book.
Well, he gets interviewed a lot for books, and he kind of worries that he might say something wrong, or some story out of school, tale out of school.
Yeah, there is that, because show business is like high school. Everybody gets upset over nothing.
Yeah, but it's a matter of being able to say this or that and feel that you're telling nothing that's horrible, but you just don't know how Dave's going to react to it or whatever, although you don't work for Dave anymore, so you shouldn't care.
Yeah, true.
But it's funny, a lot of the people who work for Dave still have a very protective feeling about him because he was very good to his staff. And they in fact, he went several years longer than he wanted to with The Late Show because he didn't want to put his people out of work.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he always
did he pay his writers during the strike?
Yes. There was a writer's strike, and he kept paying them.
That's great.
And he was the first to settle because he was an independent production company. He was the first to settle with the union, saying, "Fine, I don't care what you want to give them. They're worth it to me." So I mean, everything I ever got from Shecky was that there was a very dark side to Dave. Okay, you couldn't really get close to him, and he had a lot of he never felt he ever did a good show, and he was he was a difficult person. But on the other hand, they all liked him because he treated them all with respect and he treated them well. And that's all that really matters in the end. I understand why he was probably difficult because as a performer myself, where I was doing a show in San Francisco and I had a whole crew, you were one of them. I was responsible for all of your incomes.
I know.
If I failed, then every one of us walked out the door. So I know that pressure. And if Dave wasn't the sweetest guy in the world or the least difficult guy in the world to get along with or to deal with, I understand it, But in the end, he was a very good guy to his staff. Cared about them, and always made sure they were taken care of, even down to the interns. I mean, he was very good about that. So
yeah.
How can you hate a guy like that, right?
And I don't think anybody will ever host a show for more than 30 years in TV. That'll never be seen again.
I don't think that'll ever be seen again, and with good reason, because most people don't have the temperament for it. You know? There are a couple of people now who can do what Letterman does. I think Jimmy Kimmel comes the closest. He seems to be a broadcaster. You know, Dave was a broadcaster. That's what Dave was. And Fallon isn't a broadcaster, and Colbert isn't a broadcaster. These are people. Colbert came through Broadway theater. He did a Sondheim show. I think it was in Company, the original Broadway version of Company. And these people who aren't broadcasters don't really know how to do it. You know, Letterman knew how to do it. Knew how to put on a television show. You know, so
that's why. Remember, we both thought Pat Sajak was going to be good at a talk show because he had a broadcasting background, but it kind of fizzled.
Well, I had Pat Sajak and Vanna White in my studio in San Francisco, and with Pat, I suddenly found this guy who was snarky, and he was sharp, and he was funny, and his humor was edgy. Okay, and I guess he did that because doing Wheel of Fortune every day, you have to be Mr. Good Guy, spin the wheel, you know. So when I heard that he had gotten the Late Show on CBS, which people may remember, Pat Sajak had a show late nights before Letterman ever took it.
89.
89 on CBS. You remember the year? Wow, good for you. Anyway, it's terrific. Just terrific. And I've said, wow, he's going to be a big star. He's gonna be incredible. All right. So I went, good for him. You know, I can hardly wait till he goes on. And then he went on, and he played it safe all the way around. And I said, be the guy I saw in my studio, and you're going to be a hit. And he just played it safe, and he was off in, I think, 13 weeks or something.
Yeah,
like
too
that.
bland.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know what happens to me every time my phone rings in the house? My watch vibrates, and I have to keep doing an interview while my wrist is vibrating. Anyway,
it takes a pro to get through that.
Yeah, but I mean, Sajak could have had it made if he'd just been edgy. If he'd just been the guy that I knew and I saw, and used that ability. He reminded me a lot of Jack Paar. He had that quality, and I felt he could have been big. And so when that came on, I went, "This is going to give Carson some real run for his money if he does it right." And he didn't do it right.
Yeah,
it was back to Wheel of Fortune. I'm wondering, did he keep doing Wheel of Fortune during that time? That's what I'm trying to remember. Because, they go and they shoot 5 of those shows a day. They do a whole season in about a month, and then you're off. That's why a lot of people do game shows.
Yeah, that's pretty quick money.
It's very quick money. So, I mean, a lot of people, you go, why did Drew Carey decide to do a game show, The Price is Right? Because there's a lot of money in it, and you don't have to work that much. You get it's a month out of your life, and then you're good to go. And you've made money for a whole season. So there isn't a better job than that, I'll tell you right now. Although it would drive me crazy every day, saying the same things over and over and over again. Well, it's time for the final thing here. Spin the wheel. Okay, how much money? And having to do that same thing every
that would be a
single
nightmare. Yeah.
Wheel of Fortune. You got to get dizzy after a while watching that wheel going around. Anyway, but Pat Sajak could have had it made, and he blew it.
I think so. Yeah, he was funny. I remember that.
He blew it. But you know what that's like.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, if you really, really pushed it, you could have been one of the biggest comedians around.
Yeah.
So anyway, hey,
I'll make a comeback when I'm 95.
When you're 95? You know something? This whole place is going crazy. I'm doing the show. I must have gotten 4 phone calls while we were on. Okay, and the doorbell has rang 2 times. And in a whole day, I could shoot myself here, and they wouldn't find the body till it started to rot. Okay. Oh boy. Anyway, listen, Larry. Let's do this again in a couple of weeks, okay? Or next week. This will be next week for the rest of you folks, but for Ian and I, it's a couple of weeks. And it's Larry Bubbles Brown. Are you playing anywhere we should know about, Larry?
Let's see. No, not this one.
Okay, they're not working. Larry Bubbles Brown. Thank you very much, Larry.
Glad I could plug that.
Bye.
Bye.
This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 7th year. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Ah, yes. Okay, there we go. Like you've never heard it before. Okay, all right. Anyway, I'm a little out of sync right now, right? Am I? Yeah, I am. I'm not out of sync, by the way. If I go over to the Zoom panel, I'm not as out of sync over there as I am here. See, look, watch this. See, I'm not, see how I am? I'm fine. I'm cool. Anyway, let me get rid of that. 2 people are waiting in our room tonight. Boy, it's getting slow lately. It's getting really slow. It's people kind of saying to me, Alex, you know, you're washed up. Oh boy. Oh God. And then I tell you, I go crazy with myself. I've had this problem for the last couple of weeks where it kind of burns when I go to pee, okay? And then today I had an urgency to pee really badly, and I ran into the bathroom. Before I got there, I peed a little bit in my pants. Now, I've never done that in my life. I don't think I did that when I was a kid, okay? Anyway, so I got really worried about it. I looked it up, all right? And, of course, what does it say? It says, well, you could have this, you could have that, cancer. And they have cancer, and you have a link to cancer, So now I figure I've got cancer, all right? And I don't know what that's all about. So I start looking it up, but bladder cancer. Well, some of the things that have been happening to me, it lists there, like the hurting to pee and urgency to pee. Boom. But it says this could also be other things. And so I look up, let me see here, what was it? What was the other thing I looked up? And there, UTI, urinary tract infection. So I looked that up, and it's the same exact symptoms, except that it's in cancer. So now, of course, in my mind, what I'm doing is I'm saying it's cancer, all right? It's cancer. And it's not good cancer, it's the bad cancer, okay? And so now I've got cancer. That's my latest thing. Because I always think the worst. So I'm going to make an appointment to see my urologist on Monday and go see him and have him take a look at it. It's probably cancer, Probably the radiation that I got for the prostate became cancerous elsewhere, and I've only got a few months to live. Oh, and I have blood in my urine. You don't want to know any of this, do you? I have blood in my urine, but nothing you can see. You wouldn't know it was there. My urine is clear, right? They only know at my doctor's office when they dip that thing in there and it says, "Ooh, there's a trace of blood in here." And I've had a trace of blood in my urine, I swear to you, to my knowledge, for the last 20 years. I don't know what it is. They've never been able to figure it out. Some doctors have put me through very arduous things like, what do they call it? Where they stick the thing up your, forget it. Well, anyway, I've gone through all of that, and I have to explain to every doctor. And finally, I went to a urologist, and I said, Now, you're going to check to see if I have blood in my urine, and you'll probably find it there, but I've always had it there. I've had it there for at least the last 20 years. He goes, that's nothing. Okay, so that's the guy I'm going back to. Anyway, it's probably, it's probably cancer. Okay, all right. That's urinary. It's bladder cancer of the worst kind. It's. I always think of the worst possible. We did this with what's his name last night? With Tony last night, because he thinks he might have prostate cancer. Well, I always think the worst, because then I can control the situation. Because when the worst does happen, I'll be okay. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't know if it does or it doesn't. Anyway, we don't have many people here, but they're two good people, and they are Josh Wheeler and Alan's here as well. Wait a minute. Here comes Josh. There we go. There they are. Hello, guys. How are you?
Sounds like a urinary tract infection.
Does it really?
Yep. I get them. You don't even have to do anything, and you get them. So
I've had this for weeks though, but it hasn't gotten worse.
Okay.
But those symptoms I just said is the symptoms you've had with urinary tract infection.
Yeah. Well, I have them because I have chronic prostatitis, and so my prostate hurts, and it doesn't lead to cancer supposedly, and then it turns into an infection. And they give me Cipro for 7 days, and everything's better.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I took some.
How come you don't get those dipsticks yourself? You can get them. I'll send you some.
Oh, good, great.
Then you
Marjorie will.
Marjorie, dip it in, and you compare it to the side, and you'll know if you have an infection.
Marjorie will thank you for that. Yeah. No, she won't. But anyway,
you can use them for Marjorie. Women tend to get.
Well, I had some old Cipro in the house, and I took it to see if it would go away, and it got a little better. But it was old Cipro. It was like 10 years old. It probably doesn't.
I don't think it goes. I mean, it gets weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
As it expires, but it doesn't turn toxic.
It doesn't turn toxic.
If it got better, I would ask the urologist to prescribe.
It was a little better, by measures. But anyway, he'll know what.
All right. Yeah, it sounds like you got a good urologist.
They never check you for bladder cancer or anything like that.
That's the cystoscopy that they did on me. That was like, ouch. We discussed that last night.
Yeah.
That's no fun.
Well, I've done 2 of them. Oh, wait a minute. I forget to do this every night. Look at that. No,
you look okay either way.
Huh? Yeah.
You look okay either way.
But anyway, I just hope he doesn't put me through all of that, But
don't start sounding like Tony now. Last night
we're not even going to listen to Tony with his prostate tonight.
You're listening to the video of the show. I'm like, I'm just like you, Alex.
Huh?
My pee is clean. My pee is. I told that to Shecky. You know why I get along with you? Like I like to listen to you. You sound like me. When I pee, I don't see any blood. Before you know what I was doing, I was drinking so much water today. It was like a camel, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking. There's no blood. I Google everything and read. I said, okay.
Well, Alex has blood that you can't see in your urine.
Really?
Yeah, he was saying that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I have prostate.
Was yours? Could you see your blood in the urine?
Who, me?
Alan.
No. Nope, nope, sure didn't.
So
I did one time, long time ago, and it was prostatitis.
Yeah, they do the cystoscopy, and then they look up there, and they find nothing, and you've gone through all that trouble for nothing.
Let's pray. That's right. Let's pray that Tony gets one of those. That your urethra is about the size of a pencil.
Well, I have a urologist, and I have a stomach guy.
Oh, you do? You have problems with your stomach?
Well,
gastroenterologist.
A gastroenterologist.
Oh.
And then I don't have the guy that goes down the throat. What is
endoscope?
Endoscopy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to get all 3 doctors together at the same time. May as well have them have a field day. being paid off.
Gastroenterologist.
I am like a nervous wreck like you. I get all mad at this.
I want an endoscopy, a cystoscopy,
I want to be on 20
and
minutes.
a what do you call it?
Colonoscopy.
A colonoscopy, all at the same time, and I want to see if they can see each other.
They can all bill each other at the same time.
Yeah.
It's only really two doctors, Alex. The GI doctor does the colonoscopy and the endoscopy.
Oh, really? He never offered to do an endoscopy. Forget it. Endoscopy.
Yeah, whatever. We know what you mean.
I was calling the urologist the neurologist. I was going to go to the. My brother's like, it's a urologist.
Well, I know colonoscopy is colon, but shouldn't an endoscopy be the colon?
Well, it's the starting of the colon. It's your esophagus.
Because it goes in your
stomach.
end.
Yep.
One goes in your end, one goes down
your
your throat, and one goes in your wah-wah.
Yeah, but they look at your esophagus and your
We've
stomach.
got a lot of people listening right now. We must be turning them on with this just disgusting talk about
I
health.
think everybody wants to, have Tony film when they do the cystoscopy.
Yeah.
Awful.
Tony, you ought to go to Alex's urologist.
Yeah.
I'll put you on speaker, Alex. Hold on if you answer.
Well, the nice thing about the prostate exam, right, is that when he's through, he gives you flowers. It's very nice. Yeah.
I want chocolate.
Yeah. Anyway, hello, Josh. How are you?
I'm sorry, Josh, about my problems.
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. What's up, Doc?
House is lucky he's still young. Doesn't have to go through all these problems.
Well, the thing is, though, if you get any of these things when you're younger, oops, excuse me, I forget it. I don't want Tony to get all bothered.
Yeah, because I get nervous, really. I couldn't even sleep. I couldn't sleep last night. I was thinking of all that. I was like, oh, my God. Tossing and turning.
Yeah.
The dogs knew it. They were looking at me like I was crazy.
So what's new, Josh? What do you think about the Supreme Court today with their whole thing with the abortion thing in Texas?
I don't really know what happened today. It was a pretty dang busy day when I came home and turned the news on, and I have unfollowed on my Twitter feed so many news organizations because they just put the same stuff out.
Yeah.
Over and over again. They keep retweeting their same tweets and all that. So was pretty disconnected today. So I think I sort of gleaned from some of the people that I still have on there that must have been happy with something about that. I don't know what it was up for. What they do? Do they just refuse to, or
here's what they said.
Put a stay in effect or something.
They won't put a stay in effect, but they're taking the case. They're taking the protest against.
Okay, so they just wouldn't put a stay in effect. Which is a little odd. I find that a little odd. I don't think that's.
John Roberts talked to the other liberal people and said that Texas is trying to go around us by doing this, which is pretty obvious, and we need to step in and do something about it.
So John Roberts, voted for staying, for not staying, or for staying it?
For stopping the Texas thing.
So what you got was 4-5, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see. I'll try to look it up here in a minute, but I do think the lack of a stay seems a little odd. Because a stay is usually aired on the side of caution. It doesn't particularly hurt much. And a stay typically doesn't have any sort of imminent threat to people's liberty or safety or things like that. So they're generally granted for these, large cases, high profile stuff. So I'm not really sure why, one wasn't granted unless you sat down and took a look at
didn't
a couple of the
opinions. A couple weeks ago? Josh, didn't they have one a couple weeks ago and then some conservative?
I think the one in Mississippi, right? They didn't issue a stay on it either.
I don't know.
So I guess in that light, today's lack of a stay is probably not that surprising, which might make some sense because I read a retweet of something that maybe Justice Sotomayor wrote, and her opinion that someone had put out. And I figured this is what it was about. Like I said, it was pretty disconnected, but it just said like the court, refused to take this step a few weeks ago and has done so again. I still disagree, blah, 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 or whatever. But, I'm not really sure what some of their justification for a lack of a stay was. I mean, that's what I'm saying is it's not uncommon to have one granted in times of, you saw some of that with like the border issues and things even under Trump and, also under Biden, where federal judges will usually say, okay, we're not going to decide this issue now, but we agree that it is a pertinent constitutional question that needs to be decided. So what we're going to do in the meantime is we're just going to revert back to what was the status quo. We're going to stay with that for a while because that's how we've been operating for a pretty long time. So everything was, we're not saying it was working. We're just saying that's what it was. That was the law. This is the new law, but it is obviously questionable. Until the courts look at it, we're going to revert back to what we had. So why they wouldn't do that?
Now, by the way, you made a verbal error that I always have to correct people on. Revert back. You don't revert back.
Well, that is technically
it's a double.
Double entendre.
No, it's a double. I'm trying to remember what it's called exactly, but what it is if you say revert, you mean you're going back. So you don't say revert back.
Correct.
It's like saying I'm going back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I write so much work of history.
Yeah.
And they are so picky in that field about every single word that you use that speaking with incredibly incorrect English is my way of telling the historical community they can go fuck themselves. I mean, I know I've probably talked to you about it before, but it's just like you can't wrote that Cornwallis felt that by moving his army to North Carolina, he couldn't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Right. I mean, it's just, you had to be very clear about everything, you can't feel that, you had to have thought that. And then at the end of that sentence, there's better be a footnote proving why you think that you say that he thought that, he had to have written that in a letter or spoken, whatever. But I mean, it's, why use,
well, I don't know,
why use 9 words when you could use 200?
I'll tell you what it is. My father was always a stickler about this sort of stuff, and he brought up that particular situation over and over again. No, you can't revert back. It drove him crazy. So I learned to get crazy whenever I hear it and have to correct it. So excuse me, please.
Yes, that's true.
It's just my father. I love my father. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know though why no stay was granted. I'll try to read an article or two here and there a little bit.
I think because you got 5 other assholes on the Supreme Court, or 4. 5 other assholes on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I mean they seem to have a real hard on for this deal here. So I don't know when they're going to hear the case or anything.
Are they
probably the current term?
I haven't heard SCOTUS talk about Mississippi. It's mainly the Texas law. Have you heard a lot about Mississippi, Josh?
Oh, well, they're going to hear a case from Mississippi, and they did not issue a stay in that case either a couple weeks ago, and they heard arguments for that.
I don't understand why they don't issue a stay, just for the reason.
Well, I mean, they're just I'm not really sure either. I mean, you often do get them. I mean, I don't know what the statistics bear out or anything, but I mean, it just seems like off the top of my head sort of knowledge that you get a lot of these sort of stays usually, I guess, fairly easily. I mean, everyone always goes and argues their case, but you get them a lot just because they tend to take a cautionary path, but don't really seem to be doing it here.
Well,
I mean,
okay, well, we got another situation with the Supreme Court where Donald Trump is prevailing on the Supreme Court to prevent him not having to give over papers to Congress regarding the 6th. What do you think they're going to do there? Do you think they're just going to say thank you for giving us this job and go along with him, or what?
You know, I don't know, of course, but I don't really think so. I mean, he doesn't have a lot going for him historically. You know, I mean, Nixon obviously is the closest large case, I think, that you would compare it to, and there were a few of those, of course, and Nixon, you know, didn't fare very well at all, right?
Right.
And so some of the historical precedent you have there, the judicial precedent or whatever, is not going to be very helpful to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see much reason to overturn, you know, what was used there. You know, and that was a lot of Nixon's argument too, was, you know, executive privilege and all those sorts of things. But, you know, it didn't work out very well because, you know, the court basically said, you know, executive privilege is for counsel and advice and confidence and all those sorts of things, but you're being investigated for a crime, you know, and so this is not attorney-client privilege. And especially when it starts to involve the White House counsel, because, you know, they don't hold that, you know, in most cases, you know, because they're not the personal attorney of the president, you know, they are the White House counsel. So I don't really see where they're going to have much. I mean, I think mostly his tactics here are just to, you know, delay, right? I mean, he's the insurance company trying not to pay your bill. You know, so I mean, you know, delay, deny again, then delay more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's just going to probably take that road, hoping that it'll either go away, die down. Obviously, if he just delays it long enough and we elect a new Congress that's run overwhelmingly by Republicans, they're just going to make it disappear, you know, with whatever they have, and it'll be, you know, forgotten. I mean, that's what they're hoping. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's what their idea is. I'm sure. I mean, I'm not in their head, so I can't tell you, but I would say that's what he's trying to do, is just delay it for as long as possible. I think, you know, any court case that gets delayed, the longer it goes on, that is unfavorable probably for the prosecution a lot of times. So that's what he's going to try.
Well, there's also stuff going on here with Trump in New York, with the attorney general going after him.
Right.
So
yeah, and he's doing the same thing there, right? I mean, he's using tactics of, you know, delay. I mean,
Stalling.
You know, so.
But you can only stall.
I don't think that was going to work out
Yeah.
very well for him either, because I think in that case he's trying to get out of giving a deposition, I believe. But that's pretty hard to get out of. I mean, and we've seen sitting presidents in the past have to give depositions, so let alone a former president. He doesn't have much to protect him there either, but he can delay it for a very long time.
Well, it says here, just came through on my Alexa, that Trump has been denied the ability to claim executive privilege. Now, who was that by? The Supreme Court or Congress?
The president.
You say that just came through?
Yeah.
Just now?
Well, it just said it here. I wasn't
So
aware of
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if something was in front of the court for that today, or another federal judge at some, you know, at a lower level. That's probably likely.
Mm-hmm. I think it was. Yeah. Let me see.
Okay, so probably at a lower level of the federal court. I think at times there can be a question in front of a current president about whether or not certain documents he will wish to hold an executive privilege sort of in that regard indefinitely for former presidents. But I think Joe Biden's already waived all that. So given that he waived all of it, this was probably Trump's federal appeal of that, or, you know, something along those lines. So if that was denied, then, you know, also not a good sign for him. I mean, I think that in all these cases that he has, he doesn't have much to go on really with any of them, and he is probably going to lose all of them, regardless of where it goes. But that doesn't mean that it's going to happen anytime soon. And even if he does, it doesn't mean he's in any trouble. It just means that he's finally going to have to face up to the accusation. So in other words, he's going to have to give the deposition. He's going to have to turn over paperwork. He's going to have to, cooperate within the bounds of his rights, such as the right to not give a statement or something like that. That's all it would mean, but that's also going to take probably a pretty long time. I mean, 9, 10 months, 12 months, 14 months, something along the, and I mean, we're going to have midterms before all that probably, so I mean, that is his, that's his deal. He is delaying the repayment on his student loans for as long as he possibly can. I mean, that's what he's doing here, hoping that he dies before they come due. I mean, that's I think his idea. I mean, it's not a bad one, I guess. I mean, remove the name Trump from it, and that's probably what everybody who was in deep shit would do, I guess. I mean, I suppose if I were 80 years old and I was in serious legal trouble, I'd try to put it off for 10 years too.
Brian?
Josh, if it keeps going and going and going, does that impact anything that he would be able to run for 2024?
Negatively, I would say not. I think also the reason that he puts it off longer is so that when he runs for president in 2024, I think that he would like for it to be out there, because I think that will be something that he will use to embolden his peoples. Mm-hmm. I mean, I do. I think that he sees that, and his closest circle sees that as a good issue for them. I mean, because that's his thing. I mean, he would rather talk about that, in my opinion, than he would about what to do about foreign policy in Israel or something along the lines, something that actually is a serious question that would force him to do some thinking and some governing, and some debating and some exchanging of ideas. All of those things are not things that interest him, or frankly, that he's any good at. So he would do something that he is good at, which is running around saying incredibly ridiculous things about how people are out to get him. And he will play this incredibly paranoia card or whatever. And, it'll be great for him. I mean, it's a lot of his moves are right out of the Nixon playbook. They happen to perhaps work for him more than they did for Nixon, because the country has changed enough that, they're easily snookered now.
You want to put it?
I wasn't alive then. So
you want to put it the nice way? They're stupid now more than they were before.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's sort of what I was trying to say nicely, is that, I think more Americans at least had a little bit of, American integrity, perhaps, in the time of Nixon, to where even people who loved him got to a point where they said, wow, man, there's a lot of people that live in this country that share my ideas. We'll pick from one of them, and it's time for this guy to go. And we're gonna take our loss here. We lost this game, and we're still gonna try to win the championship another way. I mean, what I'm saying? They would just say, wow, we don't need this. And now folks will not do that. I think Democrats have some of that in them too. I mean, they certainly will sometimes defend people that it's like, just move on.
Let me take us in a slightly different direction. Brian Williams, as you know, after 28 years with NBC, did his last show last night on NBC, on MSNBC. He decided it was time to move on. And in his final parting, he said, I'll try to keep this brief. After 28 years of peacock logos on much of what I own, it's my choice now to jump without a net into the great unknown, as I did for the first time in my 62 years. As I do for the first time in my 62 years, the biggest worry is for my country. The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist. and I believe in this place, and I love my country. I yield to no one. But the darkness on the edge of town has spread to the main roads and highways and neighborhoods. It's now at the local bar, in the bowling alley, the school board, and the grocery store. We must acknowledge, and it has to be acknowledged and answered for. Grown men and women swore an oath to our Constitution, elected by their constituents, possessing the kinds of degrees I could only dream to have decided to join the mob and become something they are not, while hoping we somehow forget who they were. We've decided to burn it all down with us inside. That should scare you to no end as much as it scares an aging volunteer fireman. Anyway, that's basically what he said last night. Did it make a lot of sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let everybody else talk about that too, but I guess I had not heard that yet. So just now hearing it, my reaction to that would be that, I would agree. I mean, it's we're in a bad spot, and I look forward to the day that we can emerge from it. But I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I think we're going to survive and be fine, but I think we're in a valley.
A bad one.
And
a bad.
I look, yes, absolutely, and I look forward to emerging from it.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, a little better off than we were before we got there.
Brian, what do you think of what Brian Williams said?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely seen everything. I mean, he's not like somebody who goes in and out of news every once in a while and those type of things. I mean, he sees it every night. So to get that perspective from him is pretty good.
Yeah. Alan, what do you think?
I agree. I agree with what Josh said.
Yeah. And Tony?
I tell you the truth, the pandemic really, and I'm not blaming Trump, and I told this to Shecky and I told it to my brother, and you said it too, Alex. This pandemic has brought out the worst in people for the fact that we got more divided. Did you ever think, like, a year later, he's right, people have a license now. I mean, even by my house, you see it. It's like, I've never seen people this divisive over anything. You can't even, and it's so out in the open now. It's like the country's flipped on its head.
Well, how much?
I don't even think you're going to see a change anymore.
How much can we blame on the pandemic?
I still think, I go back. I don't want to piss off the Trumpers, but I blame Trump. He mocked a disease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that political hoax in those speeches, he riled up. He gave them authority to stand up and be like, hey, he mocked it. Remember, and I think they still don't believe it. They still didn't. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's all that, but my mother's gone, right? I go to the cemetery and I say to myself, if my mother was alive, she'd be like, what? You think they would have lined, Alex, like you said with polio? These people were dying like flies. If they had a polio shot today, would they be fighting it? If their children were dying?
That's interesting. That's an interesting. The thing was that polio had a different dynamic. Polio primarily, except for at least the most famous person was FDR, who came down with polio. But most of the victims of it were kids.
Kids, yeah.
And parents, I remember the time because I grew up in that time. Parents were really fearful about their kids getting it, because if it didn't kill them, it was going to leave them, in an iron lung or crippled for the rest of their lives. And that was a nightmare for parents, almost more than their kid dying or being kidnapped.
Because who takes care of the kid when they can't walk and they're gone?
That's right. That's right. What?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just think, maybe the Trump, the pandemic or whatever, how much did it contribute to, our current status? I mean, I definitely think that it was one more, and this one was an incredibly large one. It was just one more wedge issue when we didn't need any more. We had enough. We already had guns. We already had abortion. We already had a few, things that were already just tearing people apart. And the last thing that we needed was one more of those. And that's what it was. I mean, outside of the actual effects of it, like people getting sick and people dying and economic, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it was just one more damn thing for people to be like, oh, man, you know, that guy over there's not too bad. And then someone to be like, yeah, but he's vaccinated. Oh, fuck that guy, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, it was
yeah,
just one more thing for people to not like each other over, like race or religion, or, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it was just, we didn't need that. I mean, we just didn't. I mean, we still don't. And that's what it was. And that, I blame Trump more than anybody for helping turn it into that. Maybe it would have turned into it on its own or whatever.
Well, do you think,
I think if he had just acted like a human being,
I may be trivializing this, but somebody said to me, "Gee, you know, the Beatles really came and changed everything." And I said, if it wasn't the Beatles, it would have been somebody else.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The times dictate that something needs to happen. And in the case of Trump, I think if it wasn't Trump, it'd be some other Nazi, be some other heathen, who America would suddenly fall behind. You know?
I mean, you mentioned the Beatles, Alex, right? You know what I was thinking, because I read a little bit on Lennon, and I read a lot on Buddy Holly. Think about it. Buddy Holly died so young. John Lennon said that was like a guy he looked up to. How do you know if Buddy Holly doesn't live? He may even surpass their music.
No, he had already gone past his prime as a
you
rock
think he would have had a longer career?
But I think the Beatles, if the Beatles hadn't come along, it would have been somebody else. Okay.
Hey Alex, here's a question I asked you: if the Stones would have came over before the Beatles,
we're getting off topic here.
Okay.
I didn't want to turn it into a music topic. I was using that as an example. Would you agree with me on that, Josh? That there are certain people who just come to be because the times are ready for it, and that it wasn't him as much as it was the people who were waiting for that kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's generally pretty good. I mean, and so, you know, I don't know what would have happened without Trump's presence, you know, but he was present. And I think that if he had just acted differently, that this issue, it may still have become the huge divisive wedge issue that it is. But I don't know. I sort of have my doubts. I mean, I just feel like, or I think, had he acted appropriately in the beginning and just came out and said, listen, this is a real disease and everything.
Yeah.
We're going to do everything we can for vaccinations. Look, I'm getting mine. This is what you need to do. Hey, just help me out. Do this, do that. You know, if he hadn't had that circus
I
act,
agree with Josh 100%.
a lot of his people might have, you know, because they tend to, you know, follow the head sheep, you know, it might have been different, you know, and it might not have torn us apart.
Yeah.
And it, you know, the stupidity might not have come along with it. But I mean, I sort of agree with your, you know, kind of person for the times or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you know, I mean, right. Hitler was ripe for the being in, you know, the mid 1930s. You know, people were suffering, and their reparations and the leftover from, you know, World War I, and their economy and their inflation and their problems. And then here comes someone and tells them who they can blame it on, right? And they were looking for someone to blame it on.
Yeah.
And it got the ball rolling, you know? So the people are to blame as well for things like that. There's no doubt.
Yeah, hold on a second. There's somebody here named Terry, who I've never heard of. Have you ever heard of Terry calling us? Let's see. I may have to give.
Idaho.
Huh?
Terry from Idaho.
Oh, there is Terry. Oh, yes, of course, Terry. All right, now I recognize Terry. Hello, Terry. How are you? Well, she hasn't got her audio on, so.
I think, like Josh was saying, you know, you have these things like race. So you already have 5, 6, 10, whatever things you say are dividing, you know, with Republicans, with Democrats, and especially with the Trump stuff. But that the COVID thing was one other thing that we didn't need at this time to divide us. And like I think like Josh is sort of saying, and Trump just took advantage of that.
Well, no,
and
wait a minute. Here's the question.
It really divided us even more with another thing that we didn't really need right now.
Should something like a disease divide us?
No.
I mean, but who invented invented that divide? Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I can't find disagreement with that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it would have happened.
If it weren't for Trump, everybody in America would be lining up for a shot right now, except some of the anti-vaxxers.
And what about the last Republican, presidents we've had? How would they have handled it?
I think Bush would have told everybody to get a shot. Talked about the seriousness of it.
I think so too.
Yeah, both Bushes. Yeah.
And both Bushes would. I certainly think Clinton would have.
Oh yeah.
Obama would have. So I mean, I think those people are.
So like Josh says, this president and with this kind of topic, or there's something that he could just exploit onto his side. Is it bad timing?
Yeah. Terry, how you doing out there in Idaho? Isn't it?
No, I'm in Wyoming.
Wyoming. Okay. Yeah, right.
But listening to Joss, I am reading a book by David K. Johnson, I think it is, how Trump has scammed the American taxpayers. It'll make your blood boil if you choose to read it. But there was another book. It's called Strong Men, and it's the history. It was written by a historian. Her name is Ruth something or other, but it is the history of fascists. And what Trump is doing and has done is right out of the
it's right out of the fascist handbook. There's no question about it. First of all, one of the main hallmarks of what a fascist does first is discredit the press.
That's right. Yeah.
Then once
but it's the abortion issue, and there's another law that just went into effect in Texas today about fines for like telemedicine and sending someone medications for a medical abortion instead of a physical one. I was just reading that this afternoon.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I wonder where in the law you are right. There is such a thing as medical abortion. There are certain things you can take after the fact that will.
Well, they have yeah.
And I don't know how that fits in with Texas law.
They just passed a law and went into effect. Yeah, I was reading it. I don't know if it was Washington Post or.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that stuff can be done before that 6-week mark or after. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm probably the worst person in the world to ask.
Well,
oh no, a telemedicine. If they were to mail, these pills, they could either go to jail or get a $10,000 fine, from what the article was saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's they've got a bounty on people like that. I mean, I think we talked about it before, but I just wonder, what will happen when some of this comes times to be decided. And, I think it was Alito who brought it up the very first time with the Mississippi law or whatever. I think we talked about this on a Saturday night where I think everyone thinks that he's automatically going to be, for this or whatever, but he was just so skeptical about saying, if we let this go into effect, what is to stop other states who can make laws on their books that folks like you will hate, for instance, extremely strict gun laws, and then put all the same kind of stuff in place where you can just call up and say, hey, my neighbor's got an illegal gun and not only get them arrested and thrown in jail, but get a damned reward for it too, or whatever, or they don't even have to call. I can call, about Alex Bennett in New York. What's to stop that? And, they straight up, the opposing counsel was like, oh, well, nothing. And, I think Alito was like, and you're not a little worried about that? Yeah.
Texas purposely went around the Supreme Court, I think.
Well, I think that all of them are trying to do that as a strategy to provoke the court to finally make a decision, because
maybe
We don't have anybody.
It's 50-50.
We don't have anybody.
They'll either get what they want or they won't.
We don't have anybody on here from Texas tonight, like Scott or Jack. But I'd like to know if this governor really believes and is really against abortion, or he's just trying to make it rough for people. And
Well, it's all
Probably
control,
both.
and I think it's all part of this fascist bullshit.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it really is. Reading that book on strongmen, I think I told you last time I was on, I was down in Argentina, during 1974 and after Allende, this Pinochet, apparently he would send up helicopters and he would kick people out of the helicopters. That was something that I learned about that time. We had dinner with one of the ambassadors when I was down in Santiago.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Oh, no problem. You just have to be in by 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever it is." So they gun you down if it's 10:01. But I didn't know they were throwing people out of helicopters too.
Pinochet was the worst, just the worst.
Yeah.
And what happened was, the problem was there was a guy in power in Chile named Allende. And Allende was a communist, but he said he was a democratic communist, and he was going to have a democratic democracy. And the United States couldn't stand the idea that some guy would come along and start a democratic communist country, because then he would show that, hey, it wasn't the communist part, which is an economical part, that was dangerous. It was combined with anything like totalitarianism and so on. But if you create it as a democracy, it might actually be a success, and we couldn't stand that idea. All right?
Yep.
So we had him killed. Yep. We had him killed and put Pinochet, we put Pinochet in power. And Pinochet turned out to be one of the most murderous leaders of any country in recent history. He might have even eclipsed Hitler.
And I think Trump would be exactly the same, if not worse.
Yeah, well, he probably looks upon
if
Pinochet.
If he comes back into office, I figure I'm dead. And I already told my hubby, I'll have to go out and buy some fentanyl or something.
Fentanyl. Well, no, fentanyl is just a painkiller.
Fascist government.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. You had your hand raised,
Jack?
Am
really.
Hey, you speak his name, and there he is. Jay,
There he is.
Amongst you.
Yeah.
You were asking about the governor of Texas and where he's at with this abortion deal.
Does he believe what he's doing?
He believes in getting elected. And Texas has had a not uncommon thing happen where the major cities, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, are pretty purple. But you get out into the hitherlands, like I live only 25 miles from Dallas. And we can't get a Democrat elected to a county-wide position in my county. Has not happened in years. And we've got 2 liberal arts colleges in the county. But the gerrymandering that has gone on, we were talking about this last night on my show. The city of Denton, Texas, the county seat.
Yeah.
The district that I am in goes from this town with 2 liberal arts colleges to 150 miles to the west, where the most liberal thing is, they pasteurize the milk.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying is he's a demagogue.
I'll tell you this. Our governor, as you probably know, is in a wheelchair. He was in that wheelchair because of a event that happened. And when he got into elected office, one of the first things he did after he got $250,000 for the injuries that he received was to work diligently to pass a measure to put a cap on how much money, if you were injured, you could sue for. And he got it passed. This most recent abortion legislation that was just talked about, and there hasn't been much discussion about this on a national level. The governor of Texas signed into law a measure 2 weeks ago that makes it illegal for a doctor to prescribe the morning after pill.
Okay, that's what we were asking earlier.
Yeah. They did. He got it signed in the Texas legislature, and once again, it is
to me more the morning after pill is an aspirin.
I thought of something funny. They should make one a day before. How about instead of the morning after, the day before?
Tony,
take the morning after. I'm all confused.
Well, Tony, back when I was a young man and all my parts worked, we had the best birth control ever. An outraged father with a shotgun and the Playtex panty brief that girls used to wear that I swear to God,
I might also add,
trying to get off in the back of the
and
car.
also the thing that prevented us was a woman's dignity, because they would make you honest, you weren't gonna, anyway, it's just all, I don't know. I'm kind of like with Terry, I don't know what kind of world we're living in now. It's not the one, it wasn't the one I signed up for.
It's very ugly.
It's very ugly. It's very ugly.
Well,
and I blame Trump for the ugliness.
No, you can't blame Trump.
I do.
You cannot. It started way before Trump. I was in a conversation last week about this, and someone suggested it may have started, and I can't think of the name of the Speaker of the House in the 80s that was Newt Gingrich. This person contended.
He said something on the floor, remember?
Yeah. This person.
My pal Newt.
You hated his guts out.
Well,
you had him on that day, remember?
I hated his guts, but I was laying low for him. I was very nice to him the first time he was on the show.
I remember that, yeah.
And so he thought that I was a good guy, so he came back for a second, and that time I nailed him. That was a good interview. I remember that. said to him, "Are you religious?" And he said, "Oh yes." Yeah. I said, "You God-fearing man?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Then why do you do all those talk shows on Sunday?"
He didn't like
and
that.
he said, "Oh, well, I go to church first." I said, "That doesn't matter. The Lord says it is a day of rest. And apparently you're not going along with that precept." And he was at a loss for words, absolute loss for words. But I wanted to nail him because I had been setting him up to come back, feel comfortable, and then nail him.
You sneaky bastard.
No, that's the way you do it. You put these people in a comfort zone. A lot of people, when they do talk shows and they're hosting talk shows, for instance, if Trump's on, all of a sudden they would go after him. Well,
no, you can't do that. You gotta lay for him.
No, you gotta wait till the end of the interview to nail him, because you don't want him walking out in the middle of it.
Or you want to get him like when he's on the way out the door.
Maybe you seem like a bigger hero if you go after him from the very beginning, but if he sticks around and you finally nail him at the end,
that's final impression.
That's right. That's the place to get him. Mm-hmm. And so I never wanted to be a hero with my audience, and sometimes they'd listen to me and go, "Where's he going with this interview?" They tell the guy he's full of shit, And I go, that's the way they walk out, because I learned early that you could get people to walk out very easily.
Oh, really? You could
very easily, yeah.
You didn't want that.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, they're playing to their audience, too.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and if they walk out early, they're heroes.
But you see,
they,
I wonder how many people on both sides actually believe the crap they're saying.
No, I wonder. I really do wonder about that. I think they know it's all bullshit, really.
Yeah. Terry, any thoughts on that?
Oh, living here in Wyoming, I think they firmly believe it.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes.
You mean the people who are running for office believe in what they're saying?
Give us a percentage.
Where is that lowlife Bobert from? Is she Wyoming?
Colorado.
No,
Colorado. Man, what a piece
Western
of work!
Colorado.
What a piece of work that woman is. You know, she's amazing. I noticed you nodded your head, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, she's pretty stupid, like you said. It's not, really what we need. I don't understand. I mean, if you don't like another congressman or another senator, member of your own party, not a member of your own party, so what? There's 535 people working there.
Whatever happened?
They're not going to like each other. There's 150 people that work in my plant. A lot of us don't like each other. Got a job to do. Do your job. I mean,
what I don't get is, whatever happened to the days where, people were adversaries, but they were friends at the same time. We always used to hear about this Democrat getting along and being close friends with this Republican, and yet they had diametrically opposed politics. We don't have that anymore.
Did you hear the poem at Dole's funeral today?
No.
What did they say?
Staff had a poem. It was pretty good. You ought to look it up.
Yeah. About what?
It's about the dash between the years.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, he was one of those guys that got along with everybody.
Exactly.
And
it's what you do with the dash between the year you were born and the year you died.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Wouldn't you guys say that he was a lot softer guy?
Oh.
He would, I think he would rather get an agreement with somebody rather than arguing.
Yeah, well, I mean, he also
he was such a soft guy.
He's also the first politician I know to come out doing ads for erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
It's only his left hand.
Yeah, for Viagra.
Viagra, yeah. He said, he said, I hate to admit this, but sometimes you need a little help. And I use Viagra. Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, I hold this to Roger, creator of Fox News.
What was that?
This has been a long plan.
They set the Fox
What's
tree
happening?
I thought hold on a
Fox
second.
Christmas
I thought I did something wrong here. I pushed a button or something, and it turns out it was Jack.
Yes, sorry, getting ready for my show, and I hit the wrong button.
One of my
Alex,
promos.
Did you hear the news?
Again.
They lit the Fox Christmas tree on fire in Manhattan outside the studio.
Oakland also.
They hate Fox.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was.
I mean, that's real hatred. Burning a Christmas tree. Oh my God.
What did that Christmas tree ever do to you?
I mean, come on. I mean, I know they don't like Fox News, but that's taking it to the extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, they're burning baby Jesus.
Yeah.
The extreme would be having Tucker Carlson strapped to the tree.
Yeah. Well,
I think Alex, does he wear a toupee, you think? I always stare at him at the
Tucker?
TV. I think
I have no idea.
Why would we care?
it's just driving me crazy because it looks like a shower cap on his head.
I never met